Well, this one's a strange one. The customer complaint is a crank no start, but I wouldn't have believed them, except I did see that it was a crank no start. And then it started starting just fine. So I was able to duplicate the concern, but then it quit doing it. I hate that. Absolutely hate it. I did get a pre-scan before it started and ran, and in the pre-scan, you can see over here, we scanned 12 systems, and the PCM had 4 faults. And if we scroll down here, we can see the ABS has a CAN data from PCM, invalid or missing. I generally, if it's a invalid data, I don't really pay attention to it because that could be whatever module it's fussing about. It just has a code in it, so try to ignore those for the time being. And then some missing COM with digital audio control module. I'm not really too concerned about that. That might tie into our issue with the no starting or whatever. I'm not really sure yet, but so far I'm gonna just keep it in my mind, but not really gonna pay much attention to it. And then parking sensor round sounder circuit fault, or rear sounder circuit fault. Well, that's not going to cause an issue for us. This instrument cluster receiving error from external node. I've never seen that one before, so I did look it up, and the screenshot here is basically just saying that check for any other network fault codes or any kind of fault in other modules, kind of. So I almost take that as an invalid data code as well. And then the PCM down here, we've got throttle position circuit low input, throttle position sensor circuit too low, ratchet too low. And then our crank no start, I'm pretty sure, is this engine prohibited by PATs, which in this vehicle is the cluster, I'm pretty sure. This P1260-FF. And then the restraints control module battery voltage was too low. They had been trying to crank this thing, so probably got a little low. And when I first tried to crank this thing, it was a crank no start. It would just spin. Didn't sound like it was trying to fire or anything. It was just spin. So turned it off, got my pre-scan. That's where I got all these codes from. And while I had the key on, I didn't notice a theft lot. And so what I wanted to do is check a data PID in the PCM. Let's go over here to it to see if it was in a theft mode or not. And that is when it started and ran. Once I get in here, I'll show you the PID that I was wanting to really look at. I did select a lot of PIDs, but there's one particular one that will tell you if it's going to fire the fuel injectors or not. It is this crank fueling disabled. So let me just do a key on. Have it run because of the air conditioner. Okay, so right now with just key on, you can see that says yes. Meaning right now fueling is disabled. Well, we're not in a crank state, so I basically pulled up a bunch of PIDs, and this is one of the ones that I wanted to see. So then I just started it, like, and my data PID went to no. I was fully anticipating it just being a spin, spin, spin. I wanted to see if that stayed yes. If it did say yes, then I'm in a theft mode, basically. But it went to no, and it fired up. So then I did all system code clear. And we did have some engine control module codes come back on. We've got 3 codes here. The P1000, of course, most of you know that. That just means the monitors have not been ran. But we did have this throttle circuit, throttle position sensor circuit, low input, and this ratchet to low. I don't know what the ratchet to low is, but the customer wants me to go ahead and check these out, see what's going on with that. So we're going to do that, and hopefully in our attempt to find this issue, maybe we'll stumble across whatever was keeping it from cranking to begin with. I really think if the key was wrong, the cluster would have set a code for the invalid key, but it didn't. So I'm kind of going to ignore the theft code for just a minute. We're going to focus on these throttle codes when we get that figured out, and like I say, hopefully this will turn back into a no start. A little backstory on the car. How it happened was, apparently the guy drove it home, parked it, got up the next morning to go to work, and it was a crank no start. So then it got towed here, and yeah, that's pretty much all we know about it. Probably didn't even mention this is a 2008 Ford Escape, which you've already seen that in the intro screen. And on the live data here, they have a PID called lowest closed throttle voltage. I'm pretty sure that's what the lowest the PCM will read, and then we see down at the very bottom PID here, throttle position is 0.13 volts. So we've definitely got some low voltage there, and this is a cable throttle. I know we don't get to see many of these anymore. So if I press the pedal, it will rev. It hangs there for a while for some reason, maybe idle air control valve or something like that, not sure. But on the data here, we can see that throttle position, it will move, but it doesn't come up a whole lot. Let me turn this off, back on. So our throttle position lowest closed value now is 0.8, and our actual is 0.13. If I press this all the way to the floor, we only get up to 0.46, 47. So the engine is definitely seeing something wrong with this throttle position sensor. So let's get a diagram pulled up and see what's going on with this. We can get out there and do some voltage checks, some measurements, and see if this is accurate or not. Okay, so got a diagram pulled up, and there's 3 wires on this, just 3-wire sensor, as you can see. And like I say, it's just an old throttle body, like a cable throttle body. And the 3 wires, we got a VREF, a signal, and then a ground. And they're laid out just like that on the plug here. Let me zoom you in here. So this green with violet is our VREF. It's a little bright, but let's see, that gray wire is our signal, and then the green with a white stripe there is our ground. So pretty much we just need to check 3 wires and verify with live data if what we're seeing on live data is what we're actually seeing here at the sensor, and then we're going to see if we can manipulate this live data and see if it changes. So just have a voltmeter here hooked to battery ground, and we're just going to back probe into the green and violet wire here, and we've got 5 volts. So I want to know if this 5 volts is actually good or not. So I'm using my little test lamp. I'm pretty sure it should be fine because right now it should be under the same load. So if it was bad, I would expect it to be showing bad, but I like to test them. So I'm just using my high impedance test lamp, and we see it glowing very dimly, and we are keeping our 5 volts. So that 5 volt circuit is perfect. Okay. So now I want to see what my signal wire shows. So I'm just going to go down into my gray wire, and on live data 0.3, on my meter 0.5. So that's pretty close. I'm not going to worry too much about that. And then my final wire, this gray with white, or green with white, that one shows 0.2, and that should be my ground wire. So I want to test my ground. Basically, still using my test light, and this time I'm going to pin it into the positive side of my meter, so it's going in, and then we're going to touch it to ground, or to power, to 12 volt power, and that light's up nice and bright, and that is staying basically 0 volts. So power is good, the ground is good. That signal, is it low coming out of the throttle body? But is it low coming out of the throttle body, or is there something shorting it, pulling it low? That's what we need to test now. And to do that, I'm going to be basically jumping the 5 volt to it to see if my the signal raises to 5 volt in the scan tool data. So let's take this, we're going to unplug this, and just unplugging it, my sensor voltage on live data there came up a little bit. So let's see if that is actually true on my voltmeter. It has come up on my voltmeter as well a little bit. It's matching pretty close. So now I just need to inject my 5 volts into that. So let me get another meter lead or another end, and we'll jump that together. Alright, so I got my connector here, and just using my terminal leads, and like I said, we're going to go from 5 volt to this. Since we unplugged this and this is low, we're going to see if we can get this data to raise to 5 volts. So just pinning both of those there. Going to use my high impedance test lamp to conduct the flow, and let's see what our live data shows. 5 volts. So you can see it's not glowing because the circuit's not carrying enough current to light this, but we see on the live data that we're sitting at 5 volts now. If I unplug this back down to 0.2 volts, plug that back up, we're at 5. So what did we just prove? we proved that the circuit from the plug to the PCM is perfectly fine. It's not pulled low to ground because of a short to ground. The EC or the PCM can see the signal work exactly like it should, because we was able to raise it to 5 volts. So this thing's got a bad throttle body sensor, or throttle position sensor. So I went ahead and got the original one off here and got our aftermarket replacement. And we are going to first just test our wires here and make sure we've got good pin tension. So just going to stick my terminal tool in here, and yep, everything feels good and tight. So we're going to stick this one on, see what our live data does. And let me try to get you set up here a little bit. So we're just going to plug this up, and our live data is showing 0.25. So when you stick this on, it doesn't stick straight on. There's a little tab sticking out that has the lock into here. So you actually have to rotate it backwards just a little bit and slide it on, and then slide it down into position. And these are not adjustable, thankfully. They just bolt straight on. So we're going to slide this on, adjust it down, and as you can see, our throttle position voltage on data is actually showing right under a volt. If we give this thing a good twist, we can see we get up 3.5, our throttle position goes to wide open. So this sensor is working. So let me get the screws put back in this, and we'll crank this thing up. Whew, it's hot. It is so hot, I'm sweating like crazy. But anyways, on our live data here, you can see right now at rest we're at 0.96 volts. And if I take and press this throttle all the way down, we get up to 4.5 volts. So there we go, and our status says no error. And if you listened to my podcast with Sean Tipping on the Automotive Diagnostics podcast, there's something we're going to have to do to this thing, because we replaced a part that has a learned value. It is reset cam on this vehicle, keep alive memory. So basically going to clear out everything that it has learned and let it relearn it all. Test is now complete. It's going to tell us to turn the key off, hit OK, and that should be it. So let's crank this thing. It might start stall. Nope, gonna fire right up. Sometimes when you do a all reset, sometimes your first crank might be a crank stall. Don't worry about it, just turn it off, wait a few seconds, turn it back on. But there we go. Let's look at our fault codes. We're gonna have that P1000 and no other codes. And our traction control light that was on went away. So let's go out and see if we can clear that code in the ABS module. So let's go into this. Read fault code, retrieve, invalid, test complete. It's not really telling me if it's current or not, so let's just clear. No DTC, so yeah, that code cleared. It was just set because of that throttle body code. So no luck with this no start issue. It's kind of frustrating. Well, a crank no start. Not really sure. We'll just have to let the customer have it back and try to get it to act up again, and then we'll get back to it. It's the only thing I can do. So hopefully there'll be a part 2 of this one day. Hopefully it will come back and we'll figure out why this thing didn't start. So until then, we'll see you guys later. Hope you enjoyed this. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you guys later.